There's been a liberal dose of romance around the House of Commons today as Charles Kennedy announced his engagement to his girlfriend Sarah Curling. The Lib Dem leader, who went down on one knee and proposed in the New Year holidays, is now hoping for a summer wedding.
Charles Kennedy and Sarah Curling have been stepping out together for 4 years, ever since a shared interest in politics brought them together when she was a Liberal Democrat councillor. The Lib Dem leader has decided now's the time to throw off his bachelor boy image, and he's taken the plunge.
The proposal was at home in the West Highlands over the holiday period, and, well, the answer was yes.
Did you get down on one knee?
I did, as a matter of fact.
You did, yes.
I'm a traditionalist.
Yes.
I did.
And it was appreciated, I like that.
As you'd expect of a modern couple, they chose the engagement ring, a single solitaire diamond, together.
We didn't decide it by proportional representation, let's be honest.
Life as a politician's wife means a lot of attention from the press. Sarah Curling may be a public relations executive, but won't she find all the attention rather daunting?
Well, I've had a lot of experience through the general election, so that's probably given me as good a grounding as possible, so who knows what the future will hold.
Well, the immediate future brought the obligatory request from the photographers.
Whoever said politicians didn't keep their promises? Come on. Yeah. All right.
The couple are planning to wed in London in the summer. Laura Trevelyan, BBC News, Westminster.
It's 25.5 minutes past 10. I'll be back a little later with an update on the day's headlines, but now we join our news teams across the United Kingdom.
Good evening from BBC London News. I'm Gillian Joseph. Now, it's the last thing commuters will want to hear, but overcrowding on the capital's busiest rail routes might be about to get worse because Railtrack has neglected power supplies on the lines being used by the train operators to the south of London. The problem's now so severe, the planned introduction of fleets of new trains may have to be delayed.
South Central driver Ian Dunn says the fluctuating power supply on the tracks out of Victoria makes his job a stop-start experience.
It's a bit like if you're driving your car and you've got your accelerator down hard, then you take it off and push it back down. When you get the sides where you back down and then go forward again, it's similar to that, but obviously on a grander scale because of the size of the train. Drivers talk about it because they get a bit fed up with it because it affects the customer comfort and the ride of the trains.
Railtrack should have upgraded the power supply years ago, but didn't consider it urgent enough. Now the network's in such poor condition, it's threatening the introduction of new trains.
Put simply, new trains use more power than these old slam-door models, but the system at the moment is already at full stretch, so these ancient carriages may have to be kept in service much longer than hoped.
But the law says these old carriages can only be used for another 3 years, then they'll no longer meet safety requirements. And the plan to regenerate the network isn't even on the drawing board.
Well, I think last year was a particularly turbulent year after Hatfield. One can understand where things might have gone wrong, but yes, you're quite right, it would have been good to identify this earlier, and that is why we are now taking the lead in this project and driving it forward and funding it to make sure that it is delivered on time.
Connex South Central and South West trains carry 500,000 passengers a day between them, and they have to replace 1,700 carriages. If the new stock can't be fully introduced in time, overcrowding could get worse. Andrew Winstanley, BBC London News.
A 30-year-old man has been arrested in London in connection with the murder of a Korean student. The body of Hyo-jun Jin was discovered in a suitcase in Yorkshire in November, but was only identified this month. She'd been suffocated. The arrested man is being held in North London Police Station. Police are also concerned for Miss Jin's former flatmate, In Hee-song, who's gone missing from her home in London. Now, would your children name names if they were mugged by people they knew? The Met is hoping that a new Crime Stoppers initiative will encourage young people to come forward and tell them who's behind the rising youth-on-youth crime so prevalent in the capital. It's part of 2 schemes launched today aimed at putting parents' minds at rest. Penny Root reports.
For teenage boys faced with peer pressure, shopping someone to the police is no easy thing. But 15-year-old TJ and his friends Shyam and Sander did just that. They confronted 2 teenagers who'd just mugged younger boys for a mobile phone. But when they couldn't persuade them to hand back the phone, there was only one option.
And we tried every single possible route, and in the end, like, the last thing to do was we thought that we have to call the police.
The boy's quick thinking and willingness to get involved led to an arrest.
I don't care what people think of me. I'll do what I please. I saw the boy's face and he looked like he was scared, and I just felt angry and I thought I had to get involved.
The Met's Commissioner wants to encourage similar action with a new Crime Stoppers number aimed specially at kids. He stresses it doesn't come at any risk to the individual because it's anonymous.
76% of the people who were spoken to are quite prepared to use Crime Stoppers, and that includes young people. We must use that system.
Just off Brixton Hill, the scene of a shooting last night. Shootings in London are currently running at 2 a day. More and more now, the shootings involve young people born and brought up here in Britain. Police want to intervene to stop young muggers graduating to gun crime. And that's where the Trident and the Crime Stoppers initiatives could link up. Penny Root, BBC London News.
Historic talks aimed at bringing down the dividing lines in Cyprus have started this week. The island was split between Turkish and Greek sections after hostilities between the two nations nearly 30 years ago. That led many refugees to come to London in search of a new life and home. Sarah Harris went to find out how two communities with such divided loyalties are living side by side in the capital.
It's a fiercely competitive game, a Greek against a Turkish Cypriot. But for Tahir Hassan and Paniotis Athanison, the animosity ends with the last throw of the dice at the Cypriot Centre in Wood Green. The two friends came to London in the 50s and are optimistic the tensions in their homeland will come to an end.
Competitive, you can say that, but not actually. We don't have any money on it. We never play with money. Just friendly.
Some have more reason to be bitter than most. When the Turks invaded in the 70s and the island split, patrolled by a UN border, Greek Cypriot Michael Mele lost his home and arrived in North London a refugee.
We're getting on with the Turkish community here in London. So, I mean, we like to see that back in Cyprus when we get live together as it's been before.
For the younger generation, the hostilities in their parents' homeland seem a long way away. In London, it seems the two cultures have much more to unite than divide them. Sarah Harris, BBC London News, North London.
And you can find out more about London's Greek community by logging on to www.bbc.co.uk/London and clicking on United Colours of London. Well, we'll be back tomorrow with the main stories in London and the South East in Breakfast on BBC One. We hand you back now to Peter Sissons.
And the main news tonight, the United States has appealed for worldwide help in tracking down 5 suspected terrorists who they believe may be planning more suicide attacks. Videotapes carrying messages by the men were found by American special forces in Afghanistan. Tonight, the first pictures have emerged of al-Qaeda prisoners being held in Cuba. And some breaking news tonight. 5 people have been killed and many more injured after an attack by a suicide bomber at a wedding hall in Israel. Emergency services are at the scene trying to tend the dozens who've been wounded. Newsnight is starting now over on BBC Two, but from the 10 o'clock news. Good night.
Hello there. If you've ever driven along the A6 and over Shapfell in Cumbria, you'll know it can be a pretty bleak spot at the best of times. It was certainly bleak through today, making it the wettest spot in the UK with 30 odd millimetres, about 1.25 inches of rain. There'll be more rain to come, not just for Shapfell, but many other parts of the UK through the next few days. In fact, the Met Office has issued a weather watch for Friday particularly, with a spell of very wet and windy weather sweeping in from the Atlantic. Could well see gusts up to 55 or 60 miles an hour around some Irish Sea coast. It's all coming in from the Atlantic. This first system was the one that brought today's rain. This is the system that will bring tomorrow's rain. It's getting pretty wound up around a fairly deep area of low pressure. That one sweeps in, it sweeps through to the north of us, another one following on to take its place, and the succession just continues through into the middle part of next week, one low after another, each one bringing its strong winds and also those heavy rains. But we have got a quieter interlude tonight. The last of today's rain clearing away from the southeast. Those showers in the northwest of Scotland tending to die away as well as the night goes on. But in the clearing skies in between, a pretty widespread frost. Watch out for some icy patches where the roads have stayed damp from today's rain. A little bit of patchy fog across southern England as well. But further west, you'll see those temperatures holding up. That's because the wind will be picking up and the rain will be sweeping in. A band of heavy rain running in across all areas during tomorrow. Taking some time, mind you, to find its way into eastern parts. Probably here not wet until after dark, but once even that's gone through, more showers pushing in on those strong winds. In fact, quite a bit of brightness to start the day tomorrow through many eastern areas, some good sunny spells hanging on in East Anglia for a fair part of the day, but a wet start to the day in Northern Ireland through western Scotland, and that rain pushing on to most of Scotland, northern England, down through Wales into the southwest of England as we go through the afternoon. And not just a heavy rain, some pretty strong winds, in fact gales likely through Irish Sea areas across the southwest approaches and up towards the west coast of Scotland. The unsettled theme continuing through into the weekend, sunshine and showers coming in across all areas during Saturday. The showers heaviest, I think, across the northwest of Scotland, best of the bright and sunny weather through more eastern parts, but even with temperatures above average, it's not going to feel that way with the strength of the wind. For Sunday, well, more wet weather to come, sweeping in across many central areas, and not much change, I'm afraid, into Monday.